Christy, I want to thank you for taking this time and talking with me. This is number 16 for me.
Sweet 16.
16 podcasts. I just got it started. And I want to talk with people that are very influential in our community, and some that aren't actually, but you happen to be one that is. And you're high on my list. I want to thank you for saying okay to this.
Hey, thank you. I think you're too kind.
No.
Like I said, I haven't done a podcast before, so this will be interesting.
This is new for both of us. So you're the head of the early learning program at the American School in Japan, in Roppongi Hills. And you've been here for how long now?
This is the start of my 4th year here.
Your 4th year here. Tell me a little bit about what did you do before you came here? You doing the same thing, or were you a teacher before you came here?
Before here, no. This is my 2nd career.
Okay.
So first round through life was in healthcare, and as an entrepreneur and building a healthcare company in Malaysia. So completely different direction.
Right.
And then took some time off and went back to school when my daughters were born. Started thinking more about their education. Got very vested in their learning and development. And then that's when I went back to school and got my teaching credential. And that's what took me into education.
Oh, so you weren't always in education. This is your first time?
No.
Now, how old are your daughters?
One daughter is 14, Sochi, and SB is 16.
Okay. Right.
And so we're here together. My husband Tim is with me.
Right.
So this is kind of the second adventure in life.
Okay. Wow. So healthcare, what did you do when you were in that field? Tell us. It's kind of...
In healthcare, straight out of school, out of university, I started working in healthcare and worked in the U.S. for a few years in managed care, product development, research, customer service, client services, and then went overseas to Malaysia and started a healthcare company there. And that was supposed to be I want to say an 18-month consulting experience.
Right.
It turned into a 10-year adventure. The first venture failed. The second venture, we started from scratch and were partners in it and built it up and sold it to Aetna. And then Aetna became ING, and we went through a transition and handed it off to them, and then got to take some time off.
When you went to Malaysia, did you go over there with a company, or you went over there to start a company?
Went over there to help start a company.
Okay, which you were owners in?
We were partners in. That venture failed quickly.
Now you say we. Was your husband involved as well?
Tim also. My husband also. And we have a close partner in Malaysia.
Okay.
And so when the first one failed, the three of us kind of took a little bit of time off, regrouped, and started over again from scratch. And so the second one, we started off very small and really built it up quite literally from scratch to becoming the biggest healthcare organization in Malaysia. And then we sold that, and that gave me a second chance at life to kind of figure out what to do next.
Wow. So as a healthcare, what were some of the things your company did?
In healthcare?
Yeah, in healthcare,
Oh, wow. So we did managed care.
Okay.
So when we went to Malaysia, all of the healthcare services there were managed by companies. There was a government sector, there were some private sector companies, or healthcare companies. Hospitals. But most of it was managed by HR.
Okay.
And so what we did is we put together a way for a company to outsource all of those responsibilities.
Right.
And so we had an insured portion, we had a self-funded portion, we had customer service options, we had different products, we built a network of providers, and it was kind of like a menu option, similar to what healthcare looks like in the States, but not really. So where we could go to a company and offer a suite of options, choice of funding, choice of provider networks, level of services, and then the companies could choose how much to outsource if they wanted to move everything out of their HR division or finance division. And then with the networks, we were able to just make things more efficient and more streamlined. So you can imagine every corporate office, and this was international companies, local companies, big companies, small. Each of them had a desk in their finance or HR office, and that was the person processing claims, and the person calling a hospital or a doctor and giving a letter of commitment that they would make payment. So we just took all of that off their hands and made streamlined the whole process, made it a lot more efficient, built it up to, oh gosh, I think we had 300,000 covered lives.
What made you decide? Why didn't you do that in the States? I'm just curious. Instead, what made you pick Malaysia?
Malaysia had all the right components for it.
So you were actually, when you went into school to study this, your plan was always to have your own business?
No.
Your husband was already doing his own?
No, this Malaysia had all the right components to be able to provide this type of service. But coming out of school, no, I went into school thinking I would be a teacher or a doctor.
Oh, you wanted to be a teacher?
I did. My whole family, they're all teachers. My mom is a teacher, principal, superintendent. They had me when they were young.
So this isn't new to you. This is something you.
I lived on campuses.
It was a passion of yours.
Yeah, my parents had me when they were young, so I went to college with them.
Right.
They went through graduation from university, and I was 4 years old, and so also went through. I was sitting there next to him. I remember I had the cap and gown. I remember going to classes with them. If the timing was right, they would drop me off at childcare on the campus, and I could see them going by. And then when my mom started teaching, I was still young. I was in elementary school, and all the way through school, when I finished school, I would go to her campus, and she worked her way up to becoming a principal and then a superintendent. And so I grew up on campuses during the summers. She taught summer school at universities, and that was my playground.
Your father was a teacher as well?
My dad was not. My dad was an accountant by training and my softball coach. And so he was there for me all the holidays and summers and was my softball coach, and so that's what we did in all our spare time.
Between the two of them?
I was the only child for a long time. And then when they remarried, they divorced when I was young, and each remarried, and so now I have a younger sister who is, I'm going to tell you my age now. She's in her 30s.
What?
No, they're both in their 30s or 40s. I'm in my 50s, so how old's Romy? Yeah, Romy's 40. My younger brother's 38, 35, 32, 32. I don't know. Once they get over 20.
So for all of your childhood, you were the only child.
I was. My sister was born when I was 12.
You were 12. Okay.
My brother was born the week after I graduated from high school.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was like my baby.
So you like education, so you knew that was something you wouldn't mind going into, something you planned to go into actually.
I wanted to going in. And I realized, or I was told, with student loans, I wouldn't be able to afford being a teacher.
I got you.
And so then I switched to medicine. And I had wanted to go into medicine as a doctor.
Okay. What kind of doctor?
I wanted to be a pediatrician, so working with children.
Okay.
I blew up one of my first labs at university.
Really?
And I had never done anything wrong at school until that point. And I literally blew up a lab. We were boiling something, and I wasn't paying attention, and it blew. And the teaching assistant came and yelled at me because I had contaminated not only mine, but everyone else at the table. It kind of blew everyone's process. And I'd never experienced anything bad at school, believe it or not. And so I was a freshman in college, and I panicked, and I went, I can't do this. And so I switched out of pre-med, and I switched over to history and medical sciences history, and went in the direction I thought of business. I thought, well, I'll still be involved in some way trying to help people. Teaching, I was quickly informed, can't afford to be a teacher.
Because you wouldn't be able to pay off your student loans.
Wouldn't be able to pay off
You've
my
been doing it your whole life, yeah.
Yeah,
Before
yeah.
you
And
paid
so when
off.
we sat down and did the calculations, it just wasn't possible.
Were you already married at this time?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. And so then I thought, well, I'll go into business, and managed care was the closest to healthcare that I could get. So I always thought, oh, well, okay, I'll go into healthcare on the business side, and that's how I got started. And so I did that for 4 or 5 years in the States, in New York and then California.
What state did you grow up in?
California.
Oh, California, okay.
And then from there, went to Malaysia. So I was 25 when I went to Malaysia.
Okay. And were you married by that time?
No. Tim and I got married very late.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So we went.
Were you with Tim when you went to Malaysia?
We went together as business partners.
Okay. And then it turned into marriage.
Yep.
Were
Went
any
as
of your
business
daughters
partners, turned into life partners.
Right. Your daughters were born in Malaysia, right?
My oldest daughter was born in Malaysia.
Okay.
And my younger daughter was born in San Francisco.
In San Francisco, okay. So you went to Malaysia, then you came back. So how'd you get into education? I mean, officially.
This time around. When we sold the company, we were able to take time off. And it's one of those, I think one of those rare gifts in life where you can just start over.
Right. What year, if you don't remember,
do whatever you want.
What year did you sell it? What year did you sell it? And it was in the 2000s?
2003 or 4.
Okay.
The girls had not been born yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 2003, 2004.
Right.
The girls weren't born yet. And so we were able to take time off. We traveled. We went all over the world. We had SB in 2004. So it was probably 2002, 2003
Okay.
that we
That's
sold
your first.
companies.
That's your first daughter.
Yeah. So SB was born in 2004 in Malaysia. And that's, much as I love Malaysia, we really wanted to get back to the grandparents.
Okay.
And so as soon as she could get a passport and fly, we flew back to San Francisco and set up home in San Francisco. She was born in 2004. Sochi was born in 2006.
Okay.
And that's when I went back into teaching.
All right.
And so it started with volunteering at their preschool. And that was the start of my real focus on early years. Went back, could do anything I wanted, so I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. And so I started volunteering and student teaching at the school close to our house. Got my credential, went into teaching in elementary, San Francisco Unified, taught in the public schools, figured, okay, here's my chance to give back.
Okay. How long did you teach there? How long were you there?
Oh gosh, about 6 or 7 years.
6 or 7 years, okay.
And then
Were these the same age kids, preschool?
it was elementary kids.
Elementary kids, okay.
And then from
So K through 6, okay.
yeah, and then the kindergarten positions I discovered are really hard to come by.
Because people love them so much.
Love them so
Don't
much.
I imagine
yeah.
Because it's a blank slate.
Yeah. So I
blank
student
slate.
taught and volunteered in kindergarten, and
Okay.
then went into elementary. When I was working in the school, there's all sorts of data that comes with teaching. And there were these different initiatives and different things happening in the district. And we would get this training or get this information, and I started playing with numbers and doing things in a lot of different ways that are not typical to education. And so my principal at the time started watching what I was doing and asking me to join her on different committees and sending me as the school representative for district efforts where they needed people from the school. And that's how I started to move into administration.
Administration, okay.
So I was quite happy in the classroom,
Right.
but I kept doing more or asking different questions.
Right.
And so she said she nominated me for a program at UC Berkeley to get my administrative credential.
Okay.
And I was selected, and so I went back to school, got my admin credential, and then at about the same time we started thinking about going back overseas.
You're getting the itch.
We're getting the itch. Yeah,
Expat life is something else, isn't it?
we had been home for
Yeah.
a while.
It's
The girls
hard.
were older. They were already
Yeah.
now in early elementary school, and we started getting the itch. And so,
You were feeling the same way?
yeah,
Tell me a little bit about, I mean, I'd hate to take you off into another tangent, because I'm curious, as an expat, what was it about staying in the States, colloquial, doesn't matter where you're at, versus what was your itch about?
being overseas is fun. It comes down to it.
Okay.
Everything you do is fun and interesting because it's different, and you're always challenged and you're always learning.
Mm-hmm.
It can be the same thing that drives someone crazy being overseas,
It
right?
depends
The
on-
frustrations or the
Right.
but
The lack
for-
of a base or something. Some
yeah,
people feel
but
that.
for me, I love the challenge,
Isn't
and
that
it
something?
just keeps life interesting.
And you always feel like that you never know. Each day is exciting.
Yeah, each day is exciting.
And you
every-
don't get this sense of permanency. Like you know what's going to take place. And you're a number person, so I think it could be boring to you if you can tell what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Certainly, but if you don't know, but yet you can kind of know. You know it's going to be better than last time, but you don't know how much.
Right.
And it may not be, but you can make it, I don't know. I like that. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, every day it's interesting, whether it's visual or your experience or your interactions. When you're overseas, there's something about being the other, the outsider within a culture that allows you to experience it in a different way.
Right.
And you can get in as deep or not as deep
If you want, yeah.
as you want. But even some of the things that would be mundane in a typical life, it's always interesting. So those mundane experiences are an adventure.
So so how long have you been in Japan now? It's been
Japan, this is the start of our 4th year.
your 4th year. How has it been? What are some of the things that you think about being here in your administrative position and outside of it? Just how do you see it? I'm not going to try to preface it with anything, my feelings.
Japan fascinates me with the culture and I guess it's the culture of the Japanese and how thoughtful. There's a depth to how considerate and thoughtful everyone is, and it's not. I mean, in America or in Mexican culture, definitely within family or when when there's a relationship, there's a level of thoughtfulness. Here, it crosses all levels, and it's just fascinating to me, and trying to understand it, trying to understand the depths of that thoughtfulness and that consideration. I could spend a lifetime studying.
Well, see, you have a unique position because being the administrator of ASIJ, what's the percentage of Japanese families compared to foreign families, including American, in this school? What would you say?
It's hard to say.
Is it
because
more
we
than
have-
50%?
No, well, we have so many multicultural families.
Okay, let's do it
So
that way.
you can't do it.
Multicultural, would you say it's more than 50% are multicultural? Where there's at least one Japanese parent?
No, I think an easy, what I do for our presentations, let's say, an
Okay.
easy split is there's 10% that are completely in the other category.
Gotcha, okay. Well, no one's Asian, basically.
Not American, not
Right,
Japanese,
right.
not mixed.
Okay,
And then the other, it's about 30-30-30.
gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
but it's an interesting, here it's an interesting community because our 30%, if we said, a little less than 30% are American.
Right.
Japan is now home. They've been here a long time.
That's right. They don't plan on leaving. I'm one of those.
Our 30% that are Japanese, a lot have spent more time overseas
Than
they
here.
have in Japan.
That's right.
And then we have our families that are bilingual, bicultural, who are of both worlds and very fluid, back and forth. So it's a really dynamic community.
And don't you also they tend to be somewhat affluent, or they couldn't go to the school. Basically, I mean, this in this society, because public schools would be a lot. It wouldn't be as expensive. Let's put it that way. If you went to a public school here versus going to a private school, and this is a private school, and same with the Japanese private school, which are a little not quite as expensive as this, but still, but they're harder. No, I wouldn't even say they're harder to get into.
They might be. I think the process.
I think it is a lot harder. I think it's a lot harder. But then again, you have to speak English, or most international schools prefer that you speak English if it's an an English-speaking school.
Depends on the age.
Oh, really? So at your ages, some of the kids you take in, well, I know of because I've had them in my classes. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of accessing the school, it's got to be the right fit. So I think schools.
What do you look for?
I think here we want creativity, we want imagination, we want self-direction.
How can you tell if the kids are just 3? Do you have tests what are some of these secret tests that you give them?
I let them play.
Right? You let them play.
Yeah.
You see how they do it.
Huh? Yeah. I mean, if they're playing, they are. So when you watch children play, you learn so much about who they are.
If you know how to observe them.
Yeah.
Right.
And so.
So do you let them? You just watch them play. What do you mean? Out in the yard, or in here? You just give them some things and say, "Let me see. Go ahead, go for it." Or, it's a secret. This is a secret. You're smiling as if this might be your. You don't want. Okay, you don't have to expose it. I'm just curious.
No.
Okay,
I'm cracking up because I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm going to go into our open house presentation. No, I can tell you.
Okay.
I'm just. Yeah, I mean through play. Okay. So here's an example.
Okay.
You have a space.
Right.
And you've got multiple interesting things.
Okay.
Right? You've got a table over here with dramatic play. You've got some, clay or sensory materials here. You've got blocks or trains or people or a house. And you invite the children in. And then you watch.
So you never do it just with one child, do you?
For our admissions screenings?
You have to.
No, we try to do it with multiple children.
Okay.
Because here, in this type of environment, and this goes to what I think we believe is essential for children to feel fulfilled as they move into adulthood, is there's a self-directed component to being a child and learning, and that starts with play.
Okay.
And then there's a collaborative social component to learning. And you see both of those coming together when the children are playing. So when we do a screening, we invite the children in, and we let them choose. Now, that process is the first step because some children are very comfortable choosing, some are not.
That's true.
So that's the first step. And then as they start to play, there's different levels of play, and a lot of it's developmental. But within that, what we start to observe is what is the child doing? Where is their mindset? What are they thinking about? And we'll just start talking and playing with them.
What about the parents? Do you also, with them knowing or not knowing, interview them?
The parents we talk to.
Right.
So part of it is the open house presentations. I do my best at open house presentations to sell against us.
Sell against us. How do you, explain that.
Because I really want, the most important thing for a child is to have that alignment of family values and school values. So if they have that, if that alignment is there, that child is going to be successful, regardless of where that child is. For our school, we really value creativity, imagination, self-direction, mindset, grit, resilience, all of those skills that will lead to future success and fulfillment in life. And so with parents, I really try to show what learning looks like here, how we bring that out in the kids, and what it looks like to the parent at home, but also what it doesn't look like.
Okay.
So I talk a lot about play, and for our approach, it's playful inquiry, it's productive play. The children have lots and lots of time to explore, use their imaginations, work together, get into arguments with each other. The teachers are engaged in watching. And so as conversations start to happen, the teachers are then prompting with more questions or taking note and presenting additional information, whether that information is tactile or sensory or a story, to build the conversation up into projects. And then that's where our projects start to develop and evolve. But every classroom looks different.
Right.
And so for a
And
parent,
is it because of the kids or because of the teacher?
well,
Who's deciding that?
the children are deciding.
Okay, so the
teachers are the guides.
the teachers act as guides and as fosters of what the kids really want to do. Is it what they're showing them they want to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the teachers are the teachers are the guides. They're certainly in charge in the classroom
yes.
of environment and flow, but they take their lead from the kids.
Okay.
And it's important for parents to, one, have the aspiration of fulfillment and happiness for their child.
Okay.
The second is that the parents are comfortable releasing that control to the child. Because what would happen here, like right now we have different projects going on in every classroom, right?
Okay.
One classroom is building a life-size spaceship.
Okay.
Another classroom has converted their entire classroom into a jungle, complete with trees, waterfalls, and whatnot. Another class built an ice cream machine.
Okay.
It can range from
whatever, yeah.
to anything. But in all of those activities or all of those projects, you have the kids intensely interested in what they're doing.
Right.
And with that intense interest, the teacher can then tack on some of the things that we value academically.
Okay. Such as
number sense. So
Okay.
whether you're counting ice cream cones or
Gotcha.
planets and stars, or how many leaves are going on a tree, you're working with numbers.
Gotcha.
Whether you're comparing and contrasting, again, the size of ice cream cones, spaceships, or jungles, you're able to use all sorts of comparative language. You're able to measure. You're able to do a lot with math and comparative language. And the same with reading and writing. And so the targets are there, but how we get to the targets, it's all driven by the kids. And it's really powerful. It's more recently, I think it's been kind of the secret of early years, and more recently it's really come to the forefront as we learn more about neuroscience and learning and how children learn. There's more and more scientific support and research support for this type of learning. The other part that I share with our families is it starts in early years. They're playing. Kids are geared to play. And in that play is when they have that sense of deep interest, a desire to learn and create. And they lose themselves. They lose sense of time, a sense of everything around them. We flip over to adulthood, and that's that state of flow.
That's right. That's what we call a state of flow. Right?
That is now coming out as why are people successful?
Right.
Why are successful
right.
people as successful as they are? And it's because they've reached that perfect balance of I love what I'm doing.
Right.
I am contributing, so I feel a valued member of society. I'm successful, so I can maintain my life. that's what we target in adulthood. It's what we provide in early years.
Gotcha.
And that through line we're recognizing is the way forward. So that was, so that's, so when I
That's
say
very
we try to sell against it, there's still, there are,
against it.
well, there are people who are uncomfortable with it,
Oh, I see what you're
with
saying.
that
Okay.
approach.
Okay. So you
Going back
you-
to that first question, there are people who are uncomfortable with
that approach, right?
that
I
approach,
understand
and
that.
so I want to make clear, like we don't have units by month.
Right. And you're not forced. Okay, right.
We
It's
don't
not-
have worksheets.
Okay. It's more flow. You
it
trying to
is-
put people into the flow.
It's
Get
a
the kids to
very
learn
fluid
that.
state. Yeah. So with children, we
Definitely.
honor where they are,
That's interesting.
and we use their ideas and their interests to drive their learning.
Okay. I would ask this question. I had my kids through several schools. I had them at the American school. I had them at British school. I had them in Japanese school. Then I put them in a European type school. Okay, at the end, towards the end. And I saw the different ways they were being taught. And having been at the American school as a teacher, out at the Chofu campus, and then working at Sacred Heart, I've got to experience all of it. I mean, a lot of it. I shouldn't say all of it. And I know how extensive you train your staff by having trainers come in and different speakers and everything to keep them up to date as to what the new practices are. What do you do when you get in a situation where discipline is necessary? Because the flow could be nice. Timeout, I don't know. I've heard some saying that it works for some. Timeout doesn't work for all kids, right? So, and I know I had 4 sons, and I never was able to say timeout. That didn't work. So which my sons are all men now. How is discipline handled? Because that is something. Let me put it this way. I used to say that you can't try to talk with a child if they're really young and they're trying to do something that could possibly harm them. You don't try to discuss it then. Action must be taken. Now, I do not believe in hitting children. That's not my belief. I used to pinch my sons. I don't mind saying that. Because I'd explained why I was going to pinch them, and I don't believe you can abuse a pinch. It's very difficult to keep, you know what I mean? And it's hard, it's something hard to do. You don't come home and you're frustrated and you say, okay, I'm going to give everybody a pinch. I think it's very difficult. So I learned to do that, and that came...
Wouldn't they run?
No, they never ran from me because I would tell them,
You tell them I'm going to pinch you, and they wouldn't run.
no, where are they going to go? They're small kids. Where are they going to go? And you can only pinch up to a certain age. before they start saying, Dad, you're getting more out of this than I am. But they wouldn't run. No, they never ran because from who? From what? And I wouldn't give them, it wasn't that type of thing. You have to chase for them to run. Because you can say, okay, fine, and just wait. But I never chase my kids. I never had to. And I see parents that do. And when they do, I think they're encouraging their kids to run. The psychology behind it. If you don't run, what are they going to do? And anyway, not too much on me, but where does the discipline come in? Because if your child's getting ready to run across a red light, and they're young, you're not going to try to discuss that.
No.
And you're not going to gently pull them back.
No.
Especially if you see them from the corner of your eye and you know it's a split-second thing.
Yep.
Or they're going to do, like they're in the chemistry lab, they're just little kids and they're going to blow up the place. No, they're going to mix the wrong stuff together. What do you do when it comes to discipline? How do you talk to the parents on that? Because it's not something it's something that has to happen. That's part of life.
Yeah.
They're going to go stick their hand in that little doggy's mouth and you know it's a vicious dog. Or could possibly maim them for life. So, how do we handle that?
Yeah.
Just curious.
There's, as a parent and as an educator.
Okay. Which you are both.
So
And I
I
think
am
that's
both.
a applaud you on
And
that too.
my daughters laugh because I've spanked them each once,
Okay.
and I cried. But the reason I spanked them was they were about to run into the street in San
Gotcha.
Francisco.
And you just know, yeah.
So and we had talked about it, they knew, and it was kind of at that point in their toddlerhood when they're becoming more
Right.
independent and running
Right.
ahead, and
When they did that,
they went straight ahead right into the street. We
And you got them.
grabbed them and
you let
one
them know.
whack
Gotcha.
on the diaper. I don't think they even felt it, but it was the shock to both of us.
Right.
They were shocked and I cried.
Right.
And that was the one time I spanked them.
But do you think they got the message?
They did. And they remember it.
They never did it again.
They never did it again.
Isn't that interesting?
Because it was the shock.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. But that was one of those life-threatening.
So would you do okay?
But
so
here,
okay.
We'll break it down. If
Okay.
it's we have what we call our big voice. So the big voice is when we're
You put-
loud, stern, and quick.
Right.
If there's something that's going to hurt someone or hurt themselves,
Mm-hmm.
then we use our big voices.
Mhm.
And so it's an immediate no, stop. We don't use it very often.
Mm-hmm.
I think, if someone's throwing something heavy, we've had a couple of cases where kids have thrown rocks at cars
I understand.
or something pretty serious. It really doesn't happen often.
Mhm.
The shock of it, because it doesn't happen often,
Mm-hmm.
when they hear our voices get loud,
Right.
everyone stops.
Do you think it needs to happen while they're doing it, or do you think wait until later to tell them?
No, if you need to stop an action mid-action, right? The child
should-
who's about to throw,
That's
or
best.
that you have to
You
stop.
should do it then,
You
so they
have
know what
to.
it's about.
Well, no, you have to stop the action.
That's what I mean. That's what
Yeah,
I'm talking about.
but then you need to back up and look at what is the child either wanting to communicate, discover, or what is the child responding to.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes with behaviors, as adults, it's really easy to label behaviors as a bad choice,
Because you assume they know.
yeah, you assume they know.
They know. They have enough experience, right? But for a child,
sometimes
they're learning. They don't know.
well, they don't know. And so a lot of times behaviors are due to communication. So they don't have the language to either label how they're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't have the language yet to express what they want.
Right.
And so that's when you have to back up and you talk with them.
Mm-hmm.
And you try
believe
to
that.
understand what's happening. And then separate from that behavior, we spend a lot of time in talking about feelings and modeling how we can manage our own feelings, how we can understand others' feelings, and being able to put a label on a feeling is really powerful for a child,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they're 3 or 4, because they're just starting to discover
Mm-hmm.
all these different emotions,
Mhm.
and they're more independent, and so you have to give them the skills to manage that independence. So like just today, one of the little boys was he was so upset, and he had been kind of lashing out at friends, hitting this one or kicking or
Mm-hmm.
and so when he came in, I was talking with him. He was angry. And so what we did is we focused on, yes, I'm angry. And since I'm angry, what are some different ways that I can express and manage when I'm angry? It's
Mhm.
okay to have feelings. How do I act when I have those feelings? And so we talked about different phrases that he could use.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about ways to calm himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do a lot of just self-regulation strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And so how to count, how to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a child is having that type of outburst, you need to kind of figure out why.
Okay.
It's not that the child needs to be punished or is bad. When there are routines that need to be followed, we do a lot of scaffolding, a lot of what we call scaffolding
Okay,
to
you put
build
something on-
independence.
right.
Um,
But a
and
lot of
s-
that, wouldn't you say a lot of that has to be done with the parent as well? Because they could spend time tearing down what you're building up. You know, I mean, so if
Yeah.
they don't know, so how do you bring them in and say, look, this is something we're working on, since they've already bought into the school?
Yeah, what we do with parents is we talk with them, we share strategies.
Yeah.
And something that's really, I find it fascinating, and it's really a challenge in an international school, is everyone comes with different life
right.
experiences.
That's right.
And different parenting experiences and different values.
You mean very little parenting. I didn't say that. That wasn't me under this mask.
And
But
you know,
see,
and different values. And so
Yeah.
what we talk about is how to how to
Wow.
how to equip their child with skills and strategies
Mm-hmm.
to manage life.
Right.
Whether that's as a 4-year-old on the playground, as a 5-year-old in class not wanting to transition.
Right.
But the skills that they build now stay with them all through life, because it sets that foundation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If they learn how to be aware, how to empathize,
Mm-hmm.
how to self-regulate, how to identify how they're feeling, find strategies to work through those feelings,
Mm-hmm.
know when to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
All of those are strategies that it starts now, but it really builds their life skills. So with parents, that's how we explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have either different backgrounds or different values or different experiences, I try to frame it in the context of school and life.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are situations that are common. This is a behavior or response that is usually expected.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how we can work toward building that resilience or building that skill set.
What are some of the moments that you've had here that are just really, that you remember with joy, since you've been at the school? What are some of the times you've had kids or parents or the both? Because we all have those times when you said, yeah.
Oh God, every day.
Okay, well that's good too. That's good too. So you must get drained real quick. But you know, some moments that just kind of stick out. You don't have to say the names of the people or whoever, but some things that have happened to you that you thought, well, that was really interesting. It worked out. And you could have been surprised by it too, because you never know how it's going to turn out. Or parents that have come to you with tears in their eyes because something wonderful happened.
I honestly, every day.
It happens often.
Yeah, I mean, this is, part of it is taking a really strengths-based approach. So a strengths-based approach. So
Okay.
every child has strengths. They all have talents and skills that are going to move them forward.
Right.
And being able to see children develop, and they all develop in different ways, right?
That's true.
But no, I think every day I was okay. So today with
little boy.
one little boy.
Okay.
In previous years, he would have just had a tantrum and cried.
Gotcha.
Over time, we've helped him to build his self-regulation, his emotional awareness, his self-awareness, and then his awareness of others. So today we had a very calm conversation. This is a 4.5-year-old. We had a very calm conversation about his day, how he was feeling. He was able to label how he was feeling, why he was feeling that way, what he did. When he got upset, and then we talked about different ways, some other ideas and strategies, and those were the words I used with him too. I said, "Well, there's a couple of strategies. Will you practice them? Will you practice them with me?" And we practiced, and he liked one of them, and so we said, "Okay, why don't we try that one for a while?" To be able to have that conversation with a 4.5-year-old who 18 months ago
would have just been all over in his back, flipping all over the place.
Would have been having a meltdown as a 3-year-old.
Right.
That was a big step.
Right.
You asked about children who don't speak English. So children, and this is one of my, I think, coming from California and having started school speaking only Spanish, and then switching to English.
You're talking about yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea that children are learning language. They're not learning English, they're not learning Japanese, they are learning language.
Right. They don't know the combination yet. Right.
Yeah, and at this age, all children, if they're bilingual, they're dual language learners. And so they're pulling labels for everything, whether it's an object or a feeling, and they're pulling it from whatever language is going to come first for them.
That's right.
And so they'll mix languages, the dual language learners. Sometimes children come in speaking only Japanese or only other languages. We've had children
couldn't speak English or Japanese.
Right, couldn't speak English or Japanese. And in their first 6 months, they're fairly quiet.
Because they're processing,
They're
right?
processing, they're learning. Their receptive language is developing, but expressive language isn't there yet. And it's something that some people get frustrated with.
Mm. You mean some kids get frustrated with, you think?
No, everyone. I mean, sometimes it's the children, sometimes it's
The
parents.
Okay.
Where we'll teach them English, and we say we're not an English school.
That's right.
We are building their experiences and their conceptual awareness, and the labels will come. So yesterday I was sitting in with a class, and they were having a big class meeting. This is a kindergarten class, and so as I talk about scaffolding behaviors, this was the whole group of kids sitting in a big circle, because we're trying to stay as socially distanced as we can, and they were having a really deep conversation about coronavirus.
Okay.
Because
what grade is this?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten, okay.
So yesterday was our first day back from the holidays,
Right.
and so we were talking with them about the importance of safety measures, so masks, washing our hands, distance, and we had them in a big circle. One of the children, and they were discussing this, and they were also continuing to build on their jungle project ideas.
Okay.
And drawing on both of those, one of the children started to make a connection between the importance of trees and the jungle and clean air, and would it be possible for us to have more trees that would then clean the air and therefore get rid of the coronavirus? Because from what they're picking up and learning and talking about with parents, and they overhear everything. And in our conversations with them too, they're asking, like, why are the windows open? It's cold. They put together that, well, coronavirus air is in the air and it's bad. We have that concept. We've got trees that create fresh air. How can we start to put together a plan to make our classroom safer by bringing in more plants, more trees, and then how do we take that idea and spread it to the rest of the building, to the rest of campus, to the rest of Tokyo? This was a child who, when he came in his first year, did not speak any English.
At all, yeah.
At all. And not only was he expressing himself in English and some pretty complex thoughts and ideas, but the confidence.
Right, to do so.
The confidence to take the risk, to piece together these kind of disparate ideas that he had from his experiences. He's pulling from here, he's pulling from here. He's taking these ideas, putting them together, constructing them, sharing them in English in front of his whole class in an unstructured environment. Nobody said we have to listen to him.
That's right.
But it was the community norm
right,
that
to do so,
if we're going to be in our class meeting, we're going to talk and listen to each other and build on our ideas. And so that was, I would say, yes, that was yesterday.
That was a good moment, yeah.
And as I was watching that and looking at the children in the classroom and how many of them had started with us in nursery, how many had spoken very little English or were more comfortable in another language, to see them now in that group setting, having that depth of conversation
at that young an age, yes.
At the age of 5. And I mean, if you put on your teacher hat and you look at all the different standards it was covering, it was incredible. But then you flip it to projecting, who is this child going to be as an adult?
How is he going to contribute to the society?
And the rest of the class, how is that group going to contribute to society in 15, 20 years, right? They have the confidence, they've got these amazing ideas, empathy, how do we help the world? They're so enthusiastic about their ideas. And so we said, what are we going to do? How can this happen? That was a pretty amazing moment. So that was yesterday.
That was just yesterday. So you're right. Literally every day something happens.
It's every day.
That's neat.
And then I have my window here where I can watch the kids.
That's true, when they're playing outside, because the yard's right outside. How do you pick your teachers? Do you do the picking yourself? Do you get to pick your own teachers?
I do when we have turnover.
Right.
Absolutely.
Do you have to go out? I mean, now you can't. Not with this corona. It's hard to do, isn't it?
Well, we do recruitment internationally.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's how, when I wanted to go back overseas, when we decided we were going to go back overseas, that's how I got started,
Okay.
was through international recruitment companies.
Right.
And so that's where we go, that's how we start to source for our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We have very low turnover.
I would think so.
And I hope a lot of that has to do with just how wonderful this environment is for, not only for the kids, but also for the teachers,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of trust and flexibility
Mm-hmm.
in the classroom, so that they can create and shape these projects together with the kids. And it's really, like, as a teacher, that's what you love to do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you inspire your kids to learn? But in terms of finding teachers, what I look for first is an absolute love of children.
Okay. How can you tell? If you're talking to someone, you're interviewing someone right now,
Yeah.
what would they be saying that would make you think, okay, this person loves kids?
Just a lot of open-ended questions.
Okay.
Tell me about, describe a.
Gotcha.
And if you leave it open-ended,
Then it's up for them to put
it lets a person start to highlight what they value. And so it starts with a lot of open-ended questions. And then I'll start to look a little more deeply into experiences. So
Mhm.
where have they been? Because some schools are more academic, some schools are more
That's true.
child-directed.
Mhm.
We do really intense reference checks,
That's good.
and
Well, you almost have to, yeah.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
we've got
And you
great
have great teachers here. There's no doubt about
Yeah,
it.
we've been really fortunate.
And they're friendly. They're really, really good, and they're very personable, because you can tell. But that all starts from the top administrator on down. I found that it doesn't matter what school it is, what kind of organization, it really is the top down, because you set the tone. And if you're not friendly, your teachers, they'll start to mimic you, because they think that that's what you like. And if you're really friendly and open and welcoming, they're the same. And your teachers are all welcoming. They're open. They say hello, and I don't even know who they are. They're just really good people. They're really, really good. You do a great job.
No, this
at
is
the
a happy
school.
place. I mean,
Well, you make it that way.
I get it. I probably err on the side of being a little too corny sometimes, but I really equate this
No.
place to it's a family.
Mhm.
And I think with our teaching team, everyone has lives outside of school.
Right, right,
And then we have our lives in school.
right.
And so one of the things I stress for our team is that balance.
Mhm.
And also, let us know how we can help you. So if something is happening outside,
Mhm.
let us know.
Right.
Let us help support you. And when things are good, we all celebrate. So it's I hope, a very balanced workplace for people. And it's important because the relationship of the adult with the child is the most critical piece to all of this. How a child feels every day
Right.
comes from their interaction with the adult.
Mhm.
So, like the little boy who was angry, one approach would have been to talk about, well, how did those behaviors make other people feel, right?
Okay.
But then the little boy feels bad,
Okay.
and that's how
gotcha.
he leaves that situation. Another approach is to have the patience to talk with the child about how they're feeling and find other ways to express that emotion. And
Okay.
so the strategies, and he picked a strategy, that leaves the child feeling positive and empowered to grow.
I'm just
But
curious,
that only
'cause-
comes from if you're in a position of love and patience with children.
Right. Can
And
you share that? I'm just curious. It's the fact that I still deal with kids all the time, and I love doing it. Would you share that with me? The strategies you offered to him to express himself.
Yeah.
What were they? I mean, he was angry and he was like this, and you didn't talk about, as you just said, how it affects everyone else. You want to know how he'd handle expressing that.
Yeah, I mean, they're walking away was
Okay.
one.
Okay.
If there's a situation that's bothering him, physical. So physicality, little kids, they really want to just lash out at something, right? And so that's the one we dug into a little more. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And he goes, I want to hit. I said, okay, that's, because you get so with a child, sensory is so important. So we think of hitting as bad. If you're hitting someone, you want to hurt them.
Right.
But for a child, having that sensory feedback, it's important. Not the hitting part, but the sensory feedback. And so we talked about, the one that he chose was, if he's going to want to hit, his hands are already going into a fist.
Okay.
So how do you tighten your fists and hold your arms down as hard as you can? And so then with him, I said, okay, so I said, if my hands are like this, okay, you count with me. And so I just started bringing up my fingers. We got to 10, no problem. And so I said, so we'll count to 10. And then you've got all of that in there. I said, that's your anger. So when you're angry, you hold on, you hold it in your hands and then let it go. When you let your hand go, you have that natural sensation, right? So he felt it. I said, and then you take a deep breath and blow. And you can blow it away. And it might take 1 or 2 times. So what you have is you've given the child an action to take. That is still physical, but it's not lashing out at anyone. There's that natural release of tension. And then we do, when the children are upset, another thing that we work with them on is something simple with breathing techniques. So sometimes when they're lying down, we have them breathe with a little animal on their chest so they can see it going up and down. Slow breathing. We have different types of breaths, like elevator breath, and you count up, 1, 2, 3, 4, going up and then coming down. And another one is smell the flower and blow out the candle. And so taking a deep breath in through your nose, and that's the flower, and then blow out the candle. And so so when I talk about scaffolding, some of those have happened in the background, and so they understand already, they've practiced how to breathe in and out in different ways. So
that's wonderful.
So
I like that.
It's
I like that.
but it only comes from, it's important that the adults in their lives have that patience.
Right.
And
so that's why I said, like, for example, you have to speak with the parents. They have to know what's going on.
For parents, and this is where it's, you have to respect where every family is. And
so if you say, I'm a parent and I pinch my kids, and it's all.
Yeah, if you pinch your kids, I kind of go.
Because you said a sensory, they are in the tactile stuff. But my sense, I really did believe.
And that is tactile.
The thing is that. No, I would always talk to them, and I would always ask them afterwards, especially when they calm down afterwards. Do you think that was fair? Did you understand why I did what I did? They say yes. Because I still am under the strong belief people only do things for 1 or 2 reasons. To either avoid pain or to get pleasure. Right? So when they were doing things that I didn't feel like giving them pleasure, I'd give them the pain. And I'd let them know it's a two-way side, because I never felt good about pinching them. But I truly believed that it was something that would help to guide them. And it got so that when they did get older that I didn't feel it was necessary any longer. Let's say they're out on the soccer field playing around. I would go like this. Now, no one knew what I was doing, but they did. And when they were still young, they tighten up and get okay, and then pay attention to what they were supposed to be paying attention to. And everyone else didn't know what I was doing. It was, is that your peace sign? Well, maybe it's
kind of.
And then when they got a little bit older, I'd go like this, and they'd start laughing. Because they knew it was just a joke. But just to remind them, that's what I used to do. And we started to make it a playful thing.
Yeah. So did you get pinched when you were little?
No, my father never touched me. But he didn't need to, because I had an older brother, and I saw him touch him. I was a wimp. My father, he put a little bass in his throat, I was done. I'd give him all the tears he needed. He didn't have to touch me.
No. My dad used to pretend to spank me.
Well, how do you pretend to spank someone?
So
he'd hit the wall or something, or hit something?
Oh, I was a brat.
Okay.
And I would terrorize my poor aunts, his younger sisters, and they would scream, "Do something!"
Oh, I see. So he's doing it for their pleasure.
Yeah. So I would, and I rightly so. I had been doing things intentionally to annoy them. Like take their eyeliner and draw with it, or hide their things, or just run by and knock things over. Yeah, he would call me in a stern voice, Christy. And I would go in, he'd go, come here. And so then he would take me into the bathroom or the bedroom, something with a door, and he would close the door, and he would wink at me.
Okay.
And then he would talk to me in a very stern voice,
Right.
and then he would silently go, 2, 3, and he would hit his hand. And that was my cue to scream.
Yeah.
And so there would be a couple of these.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. There would be a couple of these fake, like, ah! Ah! And then he'd look at me and go, okay, cry. And I would cry. And as I'm pretending to cry, that's when he would whisper to me. He goes, look, I know you're having fun, but it's really bothering them.
Okay, so slack off a little bit.
Yeah, slack off. Let's, what can we do instead? What do you want to do?
That's beautiful.
And he always asked me
Well,
what.
see, if I had little girls, I probably would have done the same thing. I don't know if I would have pinched my little girl. I had boys.
But
I know it works
he
for boys.
always asked me, what is it that you want? And usually I was either bored or upset about something. And I think that kind of taught me that there was something more to the behaviors when I was little.
Right.
But it's also that importance of that relationship. And so that's why and going back to our teachers, if our teachers are happy and they have really strong relationships with the kids, that is the greatest gift that
I
you can
believe
give.
so. You're right. You're
you can
so
give
true.
a child.
You're so true.
With parents, it's important to respect where they're all
But
coming
you have
from.
no choice. Yeah, I think you have
Yeah,
to.
and so we just we talk a lot about why children behave the way they do. And children are they're in different places in terms of emotional regulation, self-awareness. What might work for one child might not be appropriate for another child. So it's a very individualized, personalized response all the way through. And then the same with parents. We just try to educate them on what the different possible causes could be. And then different ways to approach it. Another one that always comes up is, I'm looking at this book, is children.
Big sister, little sister.
Yeah, a lot of times children
siblings.
experience siblings, so older siblings and younger sibling behavior, and then friend behavior. So kind of around 4 years, early 5s, is when children start to experiment with words. And they'll say some mean things.
Well, they heard it somewhere.
Or they want to see, they've heard it, they want to test it, they don't know.
They don't know.
Right, or they don't know what we would consider a more diplomatic way of saying, I don't want to play with you.
Right.
So instead it's just, I'm not your friend today.
Right, they might say something hurtful. Yeah,
Or I don't like you. And that's kind of the next stage of, okay, so this is what you said, why? And most of the time it has to do with, well, it's just right now we're playing this and we don't have a role for a 4th person or a 5th person, or they want to do this and I don't want to do that, but they don't have the words yet to say it. And so that's another interesting one that takes just a lot of adjustment and support. And
I can see we're going to have to talk a lot more. I hope this isn't the last time we have a podcast together. I want to do more with you. There's a lot more.
Get into more touchy subjects.
We got to get into real touchy stuff. Because I just love education. I love, I've taken it on as a lifelong pursuit. I love working with kids because it is empty slate. And we only go up to age 10. And there's a reason for that. Because if they haven't been with us in the way that we have them a short time, so we really inject what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And we're not in a position where we have them longer. It's a short, but and I can make it the way I want to make it because it is so short.
Good.
It's just one little module what they have. But I really admire what you do at the school, and I'm not just saying that to be saying that. I've said that from the beginning. I really do. And not all the administrators in your position have been good. That's true. But you're one of the best that they've had. They're very fortunate to get you, and I think it's partly because there's something you've always wanted to do. You have good parents, and also you've done business before. And having been in business, you have to look at things a little bit differently, but it's in many ways the same thing. I always say adults are just grown-ups with little kids inside them. Some of them have learned to mature, some of them haven't, but you still, if you get that kid, you've got them. That child's still there.
Well, business puts you it's very clear in business who you're
It's
serving.
supposed to be.
Yeah, who the customer is.
Yeah, right.
Actually,
Exactly.
so another good quote from today. One of the little girls asked me, "Well, who's more important? Who's the most important person at the school?"
Right.
And then she listed off like the teachers,
Okay,
me,
right.
Shinobu. Like
Right.
she was trying to figure out which adult. And I said, "Actually, you're the most important person at
There
this
you go.
school."
There you go.
And she looked at me. She went, "What?" I said, "Well, if you're not having fun, why am I here?"
You're right. You
Right?
can't be here.
Yeah.
We're all here for
So
your pleasure. Yeah.
you're here to have fun and grow. She looked at me and she thought about it. She goes, "I like that." So she ran off and told the rest of her friends. But I think business gives you that understanding of why you're doing what you do,
Yeah.
and who you're serving.
Right.
And so for us, we're serving the kids,
Right.
and with the kids, the families.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, how do we make everyone as comfortable and happy and as fulfilled as they can be while they're here?
Mm-hmm.
That's the business side of it. You know what the other side is, though? It's kind of like why you're doing the podcast.
Yeah. What's that?
You're always learning,
That's true.
right?
But what's this thing we call life about?
Right.
And then I'm not one to dream my life away. What I'm trying to do is live my dreams away.
Okay.
And I think that,
I like
we
that.
always have different dreams, because in business, that once you get there's going to look better. And once you get here, there's going to look better. That's just the way we are as human beings. There's no such thing as you're done until you exhale that last breath. And then we don't know what happens after that. I'm not that curious, but not yet anyway. But I want to thank you, Christy, for your time. I mean, you give me a lot of time. I'm assuming that this is probably about an hour. Let me see. Has it
Where are
been?
we at?
Yeah, it has been.
6:08.
Wow.
Wow.
Whoa.
Oh, and now I'm just getting warmed up.
Yeah, you're just getting warmed up. You're just getting warmed up. But I want to thank you for your time, Christy, and I will get this to you.
No, it's been a pleasure.
And you'll look at it. But I mean, it's been phenomenal. I think people are going to learn a lot from what they've heard. They're going to know about you. But like I said, the next time, we'll get deeper. We'll get deeper into it. But this was good.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add? Or?
I think this was fun. I started off not knowing what to expect and being a bit nervous. And
And it's turned out to be pretty nice.
this is a fun process.
Well, thank you.
And what I really like is that you've just gotten started with it.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just someone told me to go for it, and I said, why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not, right?
Why not?
That's
Why not?
that's where we are with the kids. It's like, what's that? If you've got the confidence and the idea and the imagination, right? It's like, why not? Everything's possible.
Fantastic.
And that's what you're doing with this, and that's what our kids who made the ice cream machine are doing,
Wonderful.
right?
Right.
So that's life.
Good.
Oh,
Thank you,
thank
Christy.
you.
Thank you so much. This is the first. Oh, by the way, this is the first one I've done with a mask on.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
very good. Modeling
Yeah,
good.
that's right. You just take it nice and easy.
Trying to keep everything safe. Thanks, Lance.
Thank you.